I'm really excited today because I want to show you how to build a full stack blog application using the rich text editor that we already created on the previous video. So this is the final project. As you can see, of course, we can sign in. I'm using Clerk, by the way. As you can see, I can use GitHub, Google, or email. So I just want to go back first to show you how it look. Okay, as you can see, this is the latest post that written by Chandev and Chan Kriswinarto right here. As you can see, I'm not logged in, right? But I still can read the blog. As you can see, I can go back, I can click another blog. So anyway, user not logged in can still read the post. Okay, so let's try to sign in. I'm going to sign in with maybe Chandev account. All right, so let's hit continue and it will redirect me to the root of the application. As you can see right here, we're on the localhost 3000. And as you can see right here, there's a dashboard page. If I click that, now there's a one post that I created with this account, Chandev account, right? So of course I can view, I can edit, I can delete as well. Let's go back. I can, for example, go back dashboard. As you can see, I can click edit. So I can edit the block right here. For example, I'm going to add list one. I'm going to use this bullet list right here. As you can see, list 1, list 2, and etc. Okay, so I'm going to save the changes. As you can see, it's show the those notification down here. It's pretty cool, as you can see, and of course it will update it. Great. Okay, so we're going to use Tiptap for the rich text editor right here that we already created on previous video. We also use ngrok in order to synchronize our user on the dashboard Clerk right here into our database using Prisma. Okay, so that's what we are going to build. Really cool, I believe. I hope this video helpful, and let's get started. So let's generate brand new Next.js application. I'm going to give a name Next Clerk. Let's hit enter. TypeScript, I want to say yes, ESLint, yes. Talent CSS, of course, yes. Source directory, I'm going to say no. App router, yes. Turboback, yes. And import alias, just say no. All right, great. So now let's cd into that Next Clerk folder. And then inside here, I'm going to open that inside Visual Studio Code, which is text editor I'm using. So the next step is we need to install a shadcn for the UI. Let's go to get started right here, click on Next.js, and then we need to just run this command right here, right? npx shadcn add latest init. So hit enter. Great, I'm going to use neutral, and also for the, as you can see right here, because we're using React 19, we need to use this dash force or use legacy peer depths. Just select whatever you want. It will install the dependency. Okay, nice. So the next thing is we're done, right? So we can add, for example, button component. So we can do that right here, npx shadcn add latest add button. So we need to use dash force again. So let's first go to page.tsx, and now I just want to try to run the server npm run dev, and then just try to use the button, right? So I'm going to say div right here and just render the button from the shadcn. And here I'm going to say click me or something like that. Let's try to see on localhost 3000. Open that. See what we have. Great. As you can see, we see this button with styling from the shadcn UI. So the first component that I'm going to create is the navbar. So let's go to the component folders, and inside here, I'm going to create navbar, right? Just say nav and then dash bar like this, .tsx. Let's do RFC just like this. So save that, and then let's go back to the layout. And then I just want to render the navbar right here, right? Just do that, navbar. Wait, what I'm doing? Navbar, just like this. Now we should see a navbar right here. Great. So now let's just create a really simple navbar right here. I'm going to render header tag, right? And then in this header, I just want to add class name, call border bottom, just like that. And inside the border, let's create a div. And in this div, I have container class, container, and then mx auto to put the container into the center. And then inside here, I have the logo. For now, I just want to use link folder, link tag from the next link. Inside in here, I'm gonna put next link, next Clerk, right? And just put some icon here. I don't know, just put this icon. And then in this link component, we need to send href. And it's going to be / because when user click the next link logo, it will redirect to the root of the application, which is the /. Let's take a look. Now, as you can see, we have this next Clerk. If I click, of course, it's still on the root. Let's add a little bit class name in here on the logo. I'm going to say text to XL and also the font. Let's make it bold. Great. So here, right, we are going to create another div for the login button. So let's just try to make this small. Great. So inside this, under the link, I'm going to create a div. So this div is basically have button called, let me do button. And inside that, I have a dashboard like this. Button is basically have a link, right? Have a link like this. So let me wrapping the button inside the link like this. And of course, this link, it should be also have href. If I click the link, it should be go to the / dashboard. Nice. So let's take a look. As you can see, we have a next Clerk and also the dashboard right here. But I like the dashboard is going to be go to all the way onto the right side. So of course, here we are going to use a display flex to do that. So I'm going to say flex item center. And now I'm going to make sure that the justify should be space between. It means it's going to be push this div on the right side. Here we go. Nice. And also I'm going to add padding into this container. I'm going to say padding x to 4 and also the height 16. Save that, and here we go. Great. So what the hell is this? Remove it. I also want to add sign in button right here. So let's render button with text sign in. So let's do button, and then the text is sign in like this. Right, so we need to add space between the dashboard button and the sign in button. So we can do class name space x to 4, and here we go. For the sign in button, I like to have different variants. So let's say variant into, I'm going to say outline. Here we go. I think it's fine. So now we have the header, and then let's go back to the page.tsx. This is the home, right? So here I just want to render, let's say h1 hello app, right? And then now let's try to working with the Clerk authentication. So let's go to clerk.com and then go to docs right here. So let's try to follow the documentation of the Clerk. I'm going to use a light mode right here so you can see clearly. All right, great. I'm going to make it bigger. Just make sure you also open the documentation of Clerk so you can follow along this tutorial better. Right, so just make sure the SDK is Nextjs because we're using Nextjs. And the first thing is we already created Nextjs, right? So just skip that step. Next, we need to install the Clerk/Nextjs. So this is the package. I'm going to copy that, open terminal, and then let's open another terminal right here. Just hit enter. After that, we need to basically create the middleware.ts file. And just make sure if you're using source, just put that middleware on the source directory. If you're not using source, just put the middleware on the root. Okay, so because we're not using source, I'm going to put that on the root. So let's do that on the root file called middleware.ts. And then what I'm going to do here is just copy and paste, right? Just copy this content and then paste that right here. Let's see what we're doing right here. So this file is basically export the Clerk middleware and also export the config object. And inside the config, as you can see, this is basically show you what the route will be exposed public. As you can see right here, this will be always run for API route. So it means that this will accessible publicly. So let's go back to documentation, what we need to do next. So the next step is we need to wrapping our layout with this Clerk provider, right? So let's just go to my layout.tsx and we need to wrap all this HTML with Clerk provider. So we need to do Clerk provider just like that and just put all the HTML here inside the Clerk provider and just save that. So let's take a look what we need to do next. I think we done, right? But of course, we have to put the environment variables. Let's go to dashboard. If you don't have an account, just create account. Really simple. You can just log in with GitHub or Google or whatever you want. So here I'm going to create a new application so you can follow along from the scratch. So here for the application name, I'm going to say a Next Clerk or any name you want. As you can see right here, this is the preview of the Clerk login page, right? I'm going to make it this uppercase N like this, Next Clerk, and the C, I'm going to make it uppercase as well. There's a couple options that you can select right here, right? You can use Google, right? You can use email, phone number, or maybe Apple, right? You can use Microsoft, you can use TikTok or whatever. I'm going to find the GitHub. So let's see GitHub, where it is one. I'm going to click GitHub. So I'm going to use this one, Google, GitHub, and emails, right? So of course you can select whatever you want. So let's click create application and then it will create the application for us. As you can see right here, we have Next Clerk. This is a free version and we're on the development mode right now. So because we're using Nextjs, just click this Nextjs tab right here. And we're already doing this, right? So now we need to copy these environment variables, right? Just copy that and then go to your environment variable. But I think we don't have, so let's create the .env on the root of application and just paste that right here. We already create the middleware.ts file. We already wrapping the HTML here inside the Clerk provider, right? We already doing that. So now we can just running npm run dev. We're already doing that as well. So let's go back to the localhost 0,000 and let's try to log in. So I'm gonna click the sign in right here. Of course, nothing really happened because on the sign in navbar right here, this is just not doing anything. Let's go back and let's see what we have to do on here. So anyway, we are going to use this component. So I'm going to copy this one right here, right? And just paste that maybe down here first. So let's take a look. If user sign out, right, I just want to show the sign in button. So I'm not going to use this sign up. So I'm going to remove it, right? So let's just cut this one and I'm going to put that on when user sign out. So it's going to be this one right here. So I'm going to paste that. So if user sign out, right, I'm going to show sign in button, which is the button right here, right? So I'm going to put the button component from the shadcn inside the sign in button from the Clerk. So let's do that right here inside the children of the sign in button, just like this. So this basically, if user sign out, right, just render this one. If user sign in, we need to render the dashboard, right? So I'm going to paste that right here. If user sign in, just render the dashboard. Of course, the dashboard, it should be inside the sign in like this. If user sign in, render the dashboard button and also the user button. Let's try to see. So as you can see right here, if user not sign in, there's just one button called sign in right here, right? We don't have the dashboard and the user button because we not sign in. So let's try to sign in. I'm going to sign in with Google. Let's try to see Google, for example. And I'm going to use my Chandev account. Let's try to click continue. And as you can see on the dashboard right here, right, on the user, we should see my account after this is done, of course. Now, as you can see, I'm a login. I have my user button right here, right, with the image and etc. And now if I refresh my users on the Clerk dashboard, we have one user that logged in. Great. So this is not on the center. I'm not sure what happened. Let's go back here. And I think we need to make sure that this sign in, it should be have a display flags, I think. Or maybe I'm going to wrapping this inside the display flags item center, and the gap I'm going to use maybe 4, right? Let's take a look. Now, as you can see, my logo right here is on the center. Really nice. So if I click dashboard, as you can see, dashboard is just doesn't exist for now, but at least the authentication is just work. But the problem with the authentication now is the user is not stored in our database, right? The user is storing on the Clerk dashboard. So we need to now working with the Prisma and also the database stuff. Okay, so let's first try to, I think I'm going to make a git commit, right? So let's do git add all and then git commit -m, integrate with Clerk and hit enter. Just really simple commit. So now let's see how we can install Prisma and connecting with our Next.js. So basically I have Medium block, this link right here. I'm going to put link on the description so you can just access that out. Alright, so this is basically step by step, so you can just follow along, really simple. So I'm going to make it bigger so you can follow along as well. Great, so we already create the Next.js application. So first we need to install the Prisma as a dev dependency. Copy that, paste that right here. As you can see, it will install the Prisma as a dev dependency. And the next thing is we need to basically run the npx prisma init. So this command is basically will create new Prisma directory, contain schema.prisma file, and then create .env file if there's no access. So let's try to run it. As you can see, I'm going to run npx prisma init down here, and magic happen. We have this Prisma folder with schema.prisma inside here. Right on, and the env will be updated. As you can see right here, we have database URL. Okay, nice. What I'm going to do next is, let's try to see. We need to make sure that the database URL is matched with your database. For now, I'm going to use my local PostgreSQL database. Let's click this icon here. This is my local basically. If I click server setting, change password, right? This is my user, Postgres. I hope you can see that. So let's change that right here, Postgres. And also for the password, anyway, I'm using this random password. And also for the database, I'm going to use a new database, Next Clerk DB maybe, like that. Okay, so now let's try to run this PostgreSQL on my local. I'm gonna click star. So let's create a couple model in our schema file. Let's go back to the schema.prisma file. And in here, basically, first I'm going to create model called user. For now, I'm going to use the suggestion from the GitHub Copilot. So later I'm going to fix this, right? So next, I'm going to create model. I'm going to call this post. Great. So now let's take a look what we have on this model user. So first we have an ID. The ID is string, and this is going to be have an ID, and the default value come from the CUID. I think this is fine. And for the email should be string, and the email it should be unique. I think this is also fine. And this name is not fine because when we log in with Google, for example, there is no name, and we have to change that with first name like this. And the first name is going to be an optional, right? And also I have last name, the last name like this. And also if we log in with Google, there's no password, of course. I'm going to change this to profile image, and this is going to be an optional as well. And also I'm going to make sure we have post, and this post it should be, I'm going to call this post because one user can create multiple posts. For the created ad, by default is now. For the updated ad, this is updated ad. I think it's fine for the user model. So now let's see the post model. In here we have an ID, the ID is string, and the default is UID, is fine. And the title is string, this is require, the content is still, it's string, this is also require, it's fine. And the author is come from the user model right here that have relation and etc. So we have this author ID, it's also fine. And also we have the created add and update add. I think it's also fine, right? So let's just save that. And next, let's take a look what we are going to do. So we need to say npx prisma generate. So let's go back in here. I'm going to run it, right? And hopefully there's no error. Great. So now let's see what I'm going to do next. Push your schema to the database. So we need to run the npx prisma db push. Hit enter. Hopefully, yep, great, no error, cool. So now let's try to run npx prisma studio in order to see our database in Prisma Studio. As you can see right here, I hope you can see that we have the post model and also user model. So if I click post, as you can see, we have ID, title, content, author ID. We have created ad and update ad. Inside the user, we have ID, email, first name, last name, profile, pre-file. Oh, we need to change this basically. So let's go back. I have typo. So I'm going to change the profile, right? Profile image like this. So if we change something on the model, of course, we need to run again the npx prisma db push. Okay, run it again. After that, we need to run the npx prisma studio. And let's try to see again. Hopefully now our user is updated. As you can see right here, now it's profile image. This is what we want. Also, we have an post, we have created ad and update ad. Okay, everything is fine. So now let's try to install the Prisma client. So Prisma client is basically for connecting our Nextjs into the Prisma. So let's copy this one, and then I'm going to maybe create another, or maybe I'm going to stop the Prisma Studio, stop that out, and just install the Prisma client here. After that, we need to create the db.ts file inside the lib folder. So basically, you don't have to create a lib folder, but you can put the file anywhere you want, basically. I'm going to copy that and paste that right here. So as you can see now, it's going to be create the db.ts, and now it's going to be an empty. So let's copy this right here. I'm going to copy that and just paste that right here. Okay, now we can use the Prisma variable to anywhere our application. Let's go back, and what we need to do next, we're done. So as you can see, we can just get the user value using this command right here. I'm going to copy that for just for example. Let's try to go to page.tsx, which is in our home, because this is a server component. Of course, I can just basically run right here, okay? Because we await something in here, we need to change the function to async function. All right, async component, and then we need to import the Prisma come from the lib db, and then if I console log the users, now we will see empty array. As you can see right here on the terminal, we get an empty array. That means this is successful, right? I think we're done. There is a couple example right here if you want to get the data from the client and etc. But we're done with this integration. I think it's fine. So now let's try to create a webhooks in order to get our data from the dashboard clerk right here, right? This user will automatically synchronize in our PostgreSQL database using webhooks, basically. So let's see on the Next.js right here. On the Clerk documentation. And then I'm going to find webhooks, which is this one right here. Click overview. So let's click this sync Clerk data to your application with webhooks. So you can just read all of this if you want to just detail of what happened in here, right? But for now, let's try to just go to ngrok dashboard right here. If you don't have an account, just create an account. Really simple, and you have to install the ngrok on your local. All right, just follow along the step-by-step right here. Just make sure you click the any environment you want right here, right? Windows, Linux, and etc. And then go to domains tab, and then right here you can create new domain. Okay, so I have one right here. I'm going to use that. So after you create new domain, you can click this icon tree right here, and then click start tunnel. After you click start tunnel, you have this link right here, right? Comment. Just copy that go back to your terminal and then just paste that right here. So basically, will run ngrok http dash URL equals to whatever the URL you have. And then in here, you have to paste your port, basically, where the local host your Nextjs running. In my case, is running on localhost 3000. So that's why in here, I'm going to put 3000. So I hope you can see that, but my face right here. Okay. So now let's try to run it. And as you can see, this is connecting. And now this is an online. Great. So let me zoom out so I can just copy this link or just click that. So now I can open it. As you can see, this is open the link and now my localhost 3000 is live. So now you can use this link or whatever people in this online will access that. So now I'm going to copy this link and then let's try to go back to the documentation and then we need to go to the webhooks page, right? Just click that. This is basically inside the dashboard, right? Inside the dashboard, configure, and then the webhooks down here on the developers. So in here, just wait for that. As you can see, we can add endpoint. So let's click add endpoint, paste that, right? The link that come from here. And the next thing is we need to add basically /API/webhooks. Copy that. And then we need to just paste this /API/webhooks. So next thing is we need to subscribe what event you want to use. So in this case, I want to subscribe the created. So which is the user.created right here. So what happened here is basically if user created account in my application, if user first time login, the webhooks here, it will be run. Okay. So I'm going to use a user.created. So let's click create. And then now we have to see this endpoint and etc. And also we have this sign in secret down here. Okay, so this is basically what we need to copy and paste in our environment variables. Let's go back to documentation. And as you can see, the step 3 is add your sign-in secret to environment variables. So we need to create the sign-in secret key. Let's go to environment variables and just paste that right here. Sign-in secret set equals to. Let's go back to the dashboard right here. And I'm going to just copy and paste the sign-in secret. Copy that back to your environment variable, paste that right here. I just want to delete all this comment right here. Nice. So now the webhooks will run. And what the next step we need to do? So next step is we need to make sure that the API, it should be on the public. And we're already doing that because on the middleware right here, this folder, this road will accessible on the public. So just don't worry about that. Next, we need to install the sfix. So let's copy. And then I have to use another terminal basically and paste that right here. npm install sfix. After we install it, we need to create the endpoint. So the endpoint should be inside the API/webhook/road. So I'm going to copy this one right here. Copy that, go back to your app, create file, paste that right here. As you can see, it's going to be create API folder, webhook folder, and road.ts file. And then I just want to copy all of this, paste that right here. Great. So now just close the terminal here. And then what we are going to do is basically we need to change this right here, right? To do something with the payload. So as you can see inside the environment.data, basically we have an ID and etc. from the user inside the Clerk. So we can run Prisma right here to adding the data from the Clerk into our database basically. So basically I have article about sync in Clerk data to your Next.js app with webhooks. If you scroll really until it's down here, as you can see, this is the API/webhook/route.ts. So basically we need to just use this right here, add this code. Okay. So I'm going to copy all of this, copy that. And then I'm going to just paste, what is this? I'm going to copy and paste right here. Just like that. So what happened is we need to just import the Prisma. So as you can see, what happened is basically if the event here is fire, which is the event.type user created fire, it's going to be run this try and catch. So inside a try, as you can see, I create new event. This is going to be a wait for the prisma.user.create. So basically, I run the prisma.user.create, and then we adding the new data right here. I'm going to change the Clerk user ID into just ID because as you can see on the Prisma right here, we just have an ID, so we can use it. We have first name and also last name, right? Let's go back to the, let me go back here. And then for the email is fine. And then for the name, I'm going to use first name. The first name is going to come from this first name. And we have also last name. The last name is going to come from the last underscore name. And we can grab that from here. So let's say last name. Okay, there's a typo right here, change that. And also we don't have image URL, but we have profile image. Profile image. Okay, great. So now if the user created, this will fire, and we are going to add the data into the database using this Prisma. It will adding the ID, email, first name, last name, and profile image. Okay, great. And we also return the response, and then if something wrong, just console error right here. Okay, done. Let's try to see if I try to log in. So let's first go back to the dashboard of the Clerk, and I just want to delete this user, right? Just make sure I have empty user right here. And also I like to just open my Prisma Studio. Let's open another terminal here. Let's say npx Prisma Studio. Okay, so let's see right here. Great. So now just make sure every time I log in, you should be adding new user into the Prisma Studio and also adding new user on the user's dashboard of the Clerk. So now let's go back here and then just make sure everything is clean. I'm going to refresh. Let's try to sign in. So I'm going to use Google here and let's try to find my account. Let's click continue and then hopefully now I can log in. And as you can see, it's redirect to the root and we have already logged in. Let's take a look on the dashboard Clerk right here. I'm going to refresh. As you can see, we have new user. If I go back to Prisma and refresh, as you can see, we also have new user right here that have an ID, email, first name, last name, profile image, post, and etc. As you can see, I think I'm doing a typo again on the first name. I believe right here, as you can see. This is typo, guys. So we're going to fix that. I think I'm going to go back to schema.prisma and change this into first name. So after we update the first name, right, I'm going to say npx prisma dbpush. Let's run it. And as you can see now we have, do you want to ignore the warning? So basically it will affect the table of the first name, right? I'm going to say yes. So it's going to be run and successful. So now I'm going to say npx prisma studio. I just want to see what happened in my database. So let's run it. And then as you can see, the first name now is null, okay? Because we just changed the name of the table right here. So now I just want to delete that. Just make sure we delete it. This is wrong. And also on the dashboard, I just want to try to delete this one. Okay, so hopefully now everything should be using first name. There's an error on the road. Yeah, this is going to be first name. Great. So I hope I'm not see any error again. Okay, we're done. So anyway, this is going to be successful. If you try to log in again, it's going to be successful. So if you're getting error on your Next.js application and the error is come from the right here, right? Just make sure you restart the server, or you can run the npx prisma generate on the terminal, and after that you run npx prisma dbpush, and hopefully now you not get any error. Okay, so let's try a login first, right? So I'm gonna say sign in. Hopefully now there's no error again. I'm gonna use Google. Let's try to use my Chandev account and then click continue. Let's try to see what we have. So as you can see now we on the root and we have this dashboard and also this icon user button. If I go to dashboard, if I refresh, of course we have new user login. If I go to Prisma Studio, if I refresh, Of course, it's not run. So let's do npx Prisma Studio. And hopefully now it's gonna be right here. As you can see, we have the first name Chan Dev. Great, with all the email and profile name and etc. Okay, it's successfully great. So now let's try to create our homepage because now it's look terrible. The first thing is let's try to just close everything, and then I just want to add really simple commit right here. I'm gonna say git add all, and then let's say git commit dash m. I'm going to give a message integrate a clerk. Let's do sync clerk data to my database. And here we go. So let's go to the page.tsx and let's working with the styling. I'm going to, by the way, you can just close this right here if you're not using login functionality, right? So basically I'm going to use a main tag right here and then add some class name. Or the first thing is I'm gonna set that the class name that have container, and then mx auto to making the container on the center and padding vertically into the 10 and also padding horizontally into 4. And also I'm gonna add for the medium and more, I'm going to increase the padding horizontal into, I'm gonna say 6. Okay, so let's try to save, and here we go. We have hello world right here. So inside this main, I just basically create another div. So let's do div and then add class name here. We have margin bottom 8, right? And also inside that div, I have heading 1 that say latest post. This heading 1 should be have class name. What I'm doing wrong, class name, let's say text3xl, and also the font, let's say bold. And under the heading 1, I have the p tag that have explore the latest article, and inside like this, let's take a look. Here we go. Let's give a simple styling for the paragraph. The text, it should be mute foreground, and also the margin top, let's say 2. Now let's try to create another component. I just want to delete this one right here, right? This is just for example. Next, we need to create another component that will render the blog post list. So inside the component folders, let's create a file called a blog post list.tsx. Okay, I'm going to do rfc, change this into blog post list like this, and then we are going to import the blog post list into the page right here. Just like this, just make sure you import it on the top right here. So now just make sure we have the blog post list. So now let's create a mock data so we can use that data just for styling stuff. So here I have a mock data file inside the DB, inside the lib folders. As you can see, we have post array that have ID, title, and everything. So this is basically will match with the schema we have on this Prisma right here. As you can see on the post, we have ID, title, content, author. So that's why in here on the mock data, we have ID, title, content, author, etc. So this is will be matched with the schema as well, the user right here. Okay, so anyway, let's try to render that mock data on the blog post list. Great, so here I just want to, let's say return a div, and I'm gonna create 2 columns for the medium. So let's say class name, I'm gonna say grid column, and then for the gap, I'm gonna set that to 6. Also for the medium, I'm gonna set that the grid column to 2, and for the large screen, I'm gonna set the grid column to 3. Nice. So inside in here, what I'm gonna do, let's say map through the post. So the post come from the mock data. I'm going to map through that. So here I get the individual posts, and then what I'm gonna do is just return down here. So here I'm gonna say link like this. Link should become from the next/link. And then I just want to render, for example, heading 1 for now. And I'm gonna say post title. Okay, So inside the link, we need to make sure we have a key. Key should be come from the post ID, and we have href, right? Href is basically required for the link component. So in here, I just paste the slash post slash whatever the post ID. Great. So if I save that, let's take a look. As you can see here, we have to kind of like card block. If I click it, as you can see on the road here, we on the post slash whatever the ID. So anyway, I'm going to use card component from the shadcn UI. So let's go to card shadcn UI. And then how we can install it. I think this one. So we can copy the command npx shadcn add lattice. And then just add these, wait, what I'm doing? Card. Okay, so let's just hit enter. So as you can see in here, inside the UI, we have the card component. Great. Using that, we can just copy and paste this one. I'm going to copy that. And then here, I just want to remove the heading one and paste the card right here. And also, I'm going to copy and paste the import as well. So let's go to the very top in here and then just paste that. Okay, so now let's try and run it again. Close the terminal. And then let's try to see what we have. Let's go back here, refresh it. So as you can see, we have this card. Nice. Let's do class name with Hague full transition all. And when I hover the card, it just show the shadow medium. Let me do that. As you can see down here, we have the shadow, right? Cool. And also, I'm not going to use the card description. Let remove it. For the card title, I'm going to use the post title, of course. So let's do post dash title like this. For the content, I'm going to render the, let me use a div tag right here, div, and then let's just render the post dot content. For the card, I'm going to basically first, let's do make sure the text it should be small, text small, and also I'm going to use text mute foreground for the color of the text. Save that. Let's take a look on the browser. As you can see, this is what we have. Okay, the post content is basically HTML tag. As you can see, we're going to fix this later, but for now, let's continuing the styling. So let's go back to the card footer, and basically inside in here, I'm going to render a div. So this inside this div is basically we have three kind of like element. So first is basically the author of the post. So I'm going to use span tag in here. This is basically the, let me use this one right here. And inside that, I'm going to put the, let me say post dot author dot first name. And then I'm going to set that space. Let's do add the post dot author dot last name like this. And then down here, I'm going to put another element, which is kind of like a dot or something like that. So I'm going to put span as well, span, and I just want to add dot, for example. And also down here, we need to render the time. So I'm going to use time tag. And then let's just put the created at right here. So let's do post dot created at. We get something error here. Let's hover it. Let me see. We should use date time with capital D basically. So let's change that like this. We still get an error. Type, wait, what is that? Type date is not assignable to type string. So basically we need to change this date into the string. So I'm going to use to iso string method. As you can see, now the error it should be gone. Great. Let's take a look. Basically the date's not rendered. Let's just try to do, of course, yeah, because we not do anything inside of time. So anyway, I'm going to create another function to basically render the time format. So inside the lib folders, inside the utils file, I'm going to create basically a function called format date. Right, so I just want to paste this function here, really simple. It's like a date string, which is right here, right? And then what I'm gonna do is just make sure the date, it should be run these two local date string, and I use English US, and inside in here, I set the year to numeric, month to long, and day to numeric as well. So let's try to use this format date function right here. So I can say like format date and just put the post.created at. We still get an error. Did you mean format data? Of course not. Format date, I mean. Let's try to see. As you can see, we have John Smith dot and then March 5, 2024. So now let's add some space between these three elements basically. So let's go back to this div and I'm gonna add, let's say, class name, display flex, and the gap. I'm gonna set that to just 2. And for the item, I'm going to make sure that should be on the center. Let's see, as you can see, we have the space, look great. And the other thing that I'm going to do is how that we can render the HTML tag right here, right? So I'm going to use DOM Purify basically. So let's search for that. So I'm going to use the isomorphic DOM Purify package to basically remove the HTML tag, because as you can see right here, we have the heading 1, we have heading 1, heading 2, and paragraph, and etc. I just need to remove all the HTML tag, just render plain tags. So that's why I'm going to use the isomorphic DOM Purify. Let's copy the comment and I'm going to open another terminal, just paste that right here, npm install isomorphic DOM Purify. All right, it's done. So now let's just import the component on the top right here, import DOM Purify from isomorphic DOM Purify. And we are going to use that inside the div right here. Okay. So what I'm going to do, let's remove this one. And I'm going to say DOM Purify, right? I'm going to say dot sanitize, and then let's put the post content. So let's take a look. As you can see, this is basically still render the HTML tag. We still have heading 1, b tag, and etc. So we need to send basically an option inside the sanitize function. So let's do that right here. I'm going to add a comma, and then I'm going to make sure the allowed tag, right? I'm going to setting this to just empty array. So this basically will remove all the HTML tag and just render plain tags. So as you can see, if I go back right here, all the HTML tag will remove and we just have a simple text right here. Okay, that's great. So I just want to add some class name in here. So let's do class name. I'm going to make sure this should be text mute foreground. So now let's try to click this dashboard. All right, now we don't have any element in this dashboard basically. So let's first create the dashboard page, right? So inside of app folders, I'm going to create a folder called dashboard component. And inside that, I'm going to create page.tsx. Okay, so let's do RFC and then change this to dashboard page. Just like that. So now let's take a look. As you can see, we have dashboard page right here. And then I just want to remove the div. So inside in here, I'm going to render another div. Okay. And basically, I'm going to put a heading 1 that say my post. So after that, I'm going to render a button. So I'm going to use link, because when I click this link, it will redirect me to the /create page. Okay, so let's do a link, and inside that I have a button like this, and inside the button I'm going to put new post text. So let's do icon plus icon, come from the Lucid React, and also I'm going to make sure we have margin right to 2 and also the height 4 and width as well. Okay, so make sure the link, it should be half href because this is required. So I'm gonna go through the /create page. Let's try to see. As you can see, we have my post and then new post button. I'm going to put the new post on the right side. So that's why in this div, I'm going to make sure the display flags should be have justify between. And also the item, just make sure that on the center. Here we go. Great. So of course, we need to make sure we're wrapping this with container. Let's do that in the top right here. Class name. What I'm doing, class name is going to be container and also mx auto. Also, let's add padding Y to 10 and also padding X to 4. For the medium, I'm going to say padding X to 6. Okay, nice. I'm not gonna working with dashboard right now. I'm going to working with a create post form. Okay, so let me go back, click dashboard, create, and when I click new post, okay, we on the create page right now. So let's try to first I think I'm going to style in the heading one a little bit. Let's do class name text 3XL, 3XL, and also the font. Just make sure this is going to be bold. Okay, let's go back and here we go. Nice. Now let's create the form so we can create a new post, right? Let's go on the app and then here I'm going to create folders, and inside that we have page.tsx. Let's do RFC, change that to create page. All right, so now let's create the container. But I think we have a lot of container, right? We create container on the dashboard, we create container on the page right here. So I think it's better if we have container component, right? So let's create a component. So I just want to copy the class name, and then inside the component folders, I'm gonna create, let me container, okay, container.tsx, and let's do RFC, and it's gonna be container. And also I just want to say class name, class name should be using this container class. And then I just want to make sure that this should be children. So let's do children like this. And of course we need to create the interface of the container props, and then should be have children as a React node. And let's grab the children right here. Let's say children should be have container props. Okay, it's fine. So now we can use the container around the component. Let's go to home right here. So I'm going to, instead of main, I'm going to basically render the container component here. Okay, just like that. And also inside the dashboard, I'm going to as well render the container. Just like this. Let's go on the closing tag. Nice. So now we can use that on the create page right here. So container, here we go. Make sure we import it from the component. So now we have this container. Nice. Go back here. So inside in here, I'm going to create heading one. Let's say heading one, create new post. Great. So now let's add some class name on the heading one. Let's do text 3XL. Also the font, I'm going to set that to bold. Also the margin bottom, let's say 8. Save that. Let's take a look. Here we go. And on the top right here, on the top of the heading one, I have like a back button. So I'm going to use maybe div. So in this div, I have class name margin bottom to, I'm going to say 6, right? That's 6. And also inside this div, I have link tag. So let's do link component. So let's do link component, and then the href should be go into the, let's say /, and inside this link, I have button. So let's do button component like that. And inside the button, we have a back text. And also we have icon. So I'm going to use arrow left component icon. And then here I'm going to make sure that we have margin right to, let's say 2, also the height 4 and width 4 as well. Let's see, we have this button back. Great. Let's just styling this a little bit. The variant, I'm going to change that to outline. Also, I'm going to make sure I use a small size. Great. Let's take a look. Yeah, I think it's fine. So now let's create the form. So I'm going to do form tag and then just remove the action. So basically inside the form, we just have an input and also the rich text editor. So the input, it should become from the shadcn UI. So basically we need to install the input component, and also we need to install the label component. As you can see on the code right here, this is basically the label component. Great. So now let's go back to the terminal, and then I'm gonna say npx shadcn add label, also input. So now let's try to render the label and also the input. First, I'm going to render that inside the div. So here I'm going to render the label component, come from the component UI. And also for the text, I'm gonna say title. Let's do the HTML4 is going to be in title. And also down here we have the input field. So let's do input like this. And then the input, it should be self-closing tag. For the ID, just make sure this is a title. For the value, it should be come from the state basically. Let's say title, we don't have yet. Let's create on the top right here. Let's do state, call title. What I'm doing, title, it should be have a capital T. Just import the useState. This is going to be a string, by default it's empty string. And of course, because we're using useState in this component, we need to change that component into a client. Okay, great. So in this input, we have a value, ID, and also I'm going to put the onChange event. OnChange event, it should be tag event here, and then I just want to set the title, right? Set the title into, let's say e.target.value. Also, let's just put a placeholder. For the placeholder, I'm gonna say enter post title, and also I'm going to change basically the background of the input. So let's say background slate, I'm gonna set that to 5D. And I just want to make sure the title, it should be an require tag. Okay, require input. Let's go back. Let's see what we have. Okay, we have this one. It's really long input field. So anyway, I'm going to make sure we have maximal width in this form. So I'm going to say class name. I'm going to set the maximal width into 3XL. Okay, nice. We don't have any space between the title and between the input field, right? So I think I'm going to add that space. So in this div, I'm going to do class name space. I'm going to say y into, let's do just, I think 2 is fine. Okay, now we have that space. Also, we have another div that render the rich text editor. So let's do a div. This div, it should be also have class name space y22. Okay, and inside that, we are going to render the label first. Okay, the label, of course, I'm not going to use text area. The label have HTML4 content, and then the label is basically content. Let's try to save and take a look. As you can see, we don't have any space between the div of the title and div of the content. So in this div, okay, we need to basically add space. So on the form, I'm going to put space y. I'm gonna set that to I think maybe 6. Okay, we need to more space here. Okay, nice. All right, great. So now we need to get the rich text editor that we already created on the previous video. If you don't watching that, just click a link on the description. But for now, I just want to go to the GitHub repository. So let's go to my GitHub repository, and then I just want to look in my repository for that rich text editor, which is this one. Of course, you can just clone it if you want, right? Or just click this link if you want to see the video. And I just want to go to that component. So let's go to components, and then rich text editor, right? Basically, we have two files in here, index.html, index.tsx, I mean. So let's just copy everything in here. Let's copy that. And then go back to the component folders, and I'm going to create a folder called, not on the dashboard, bro, but on the component folders. Inside here, I'm going to say rich text editor. Okay, so inside that, I have the index.tsx. Let's just put all the code right here. Okay, just ignore all the error, it's fine. Let's go back to the menu bar. So I'm going to copy all of that again. Copy the raw file, and then go back here, create a menu bar. Menu bar.tsx, paste that. And as you can see, we have a lot of error again because we don't basically install any package for the rich text editor. But anyway, how we can use that? Let's go back to the, I think on the page, right? Page and then page.tsx. And as you can see, this is how I run the rich text editor. Let's just copy that. I hope you can see that. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm not zoom in. But anyway, let's go back to create page right here and just render that rich text editor like this. And of course, we need to basically create the state. So I'm going to create state called, I think content. So let's go up here. I'm going to copy and paste, change this to content and set content as well. Great. So now let's go back in here. We need to send the content, and also the on change is basically set content. So as you can see, we have a lot of error on the index and menu bar. So let's fix that. So I also have a medium for this article, how to build a rich text editor in Next.js using Tiptap. So basically what we need to do is just copy all of this dependency, copy all of that, and then we need to just run it down here. Okay, so basically this is will install Tiptap React and everything about Tiptap. But as you can see on the menu bar, we're also using the toggle component from the shadcn UI. So that's why we also need to install that component. So let's do npx shadcn add toggle, right? Like this and hit enter. As you can see on the index, yeah, the menu bar is still getting error. Hopefully after we install the toggle, we don't have any error. Let me see. Okay, now just make sure this is okay. Great, it's not have any error. And also for the menu bar, it also there's no error again. Great. So let's take a look on the browser what we have, and hopefully, as you can see, guys, now the rich text editor is rendered pretty good. And we have just a little what happened in here. I think let's go back to index and this one. Okay, just remove it. And here we go. We have the rich text editor right here with the title, with the rich text editor. Hopefully the heading one is not works. I believe the bold is works. Yep, the bold is work. The highlight, it works. The heading 1, heading 2, and heading 3 is not working basically. So I think the heading 1, heading 2, and heading 3 is not working. It's just because, let's go back to the GitHub repository on my rich text editor here. And I think let's try to see the CSS, right? The global.css file. And then I believe down here we have that heading 1, heading 2, and heading 3. So this is basically we are going to copy, and then let's go to the global CSS. Let's just try to paste that down here. Let's try it. I'm going to paste and let's take a look. As you can see, the heading 2, heading 3 is just works basically. Okay, let's try to see. I think everything is fine, right? Go to dashboard, new post, try to use heading 1, heading 2, heading 3. It's fine, but it's better. We need to just make sure on the front of the heading 2, heading 3 right here is basically have a Tiptap class, because if you're using like this, all the hash 1, heading 2, heading 3 on your document will have this styling basically, right? So we need to make sure we have the Tiptap class on the front of the heading 1, heading 2, and heading 3. So let's try to put the Tiptap class in here. I also want to remove the font bold basically, because we have a bold right here. So there's no reason heading 1 by default have a bold, I think. So let's try to do heading 1, and as you can see, I can just do bold right here. So let's try to see when we submit the form, what happened. Let's go back to page.tsx on the create page right here. As you can see, if I submit the form, nothing happened. So here I'm going to add the on submit set equals to the handle submit function, right? So let's create the handle submit function on the top right here. Let's do const handle submit set equals to an arrow function. For now, just say console log. Let me do title and also content. Save that. Let's go back to the page, and I just want to go see the console. So hopefully we get the value, right? Title example and content example. So I'm going to use heading 1 maybe. So let's try to, we don't have the button submit. So anyway, let's go back here, and inside of form, we need to create the button submit. So let's do a button, type submit, and create post for now. Okay, great. Let's try. Go back. Let's try to click create post. And as you can see, oh, basically the form is reload, but as you can see on the console, we have these, I hope you can see that. We have this title, right? Title example, and also for the content, we have the HTML tag right here with heading 1 and then content example of the content of the heading 1. But the browser is reload. That's why we need to prevent that. So in here, I'm gonna say E, and then I'm gonna say E dot prevent. So anyway, the type of the E is basically, I forget that, but it's kind of like a form event, I think. Form event. I hope I'm not wrong. Let's do prevent default. Yeah, great. So let's try. I'm going to say title 1 example, and then content 1 example. I'm going to just change everything on heading 1 and also with highlight, for example. Let's try to submit. As you can see now, the browser is now reload, and we have the content right here. Title 1 example, and we have a heading 1 with mark as well. Great, it works. So I also want to create state called is submitting. So let's do is submitting is basically a boolean. As you can see by default is false. And I just want to set the is submitting to true when I click the handle submit. So let's do set submitting into true. And then I just want to put that value right here. Basically, I need to have some condition. I'm going to set the disable to true of this button when the is submitting is true. And then I'm going to change this into, let me say, if the is submitting is true, I'm going to make sure that I'm going to use creating, I think. Creating, and also create post. Just like that. Let's try to see if I click create post, right? Oh, this is required. Okay. So let's do create post, and as you can see, we have the creating right here. Okay, that's nice, right? So let's also make sure that we're doing something inside the handle submit, right? I'm going to use try and catch right here. Try, catch, we catch the error like this. Okay, great. And then finally, I'm going to make sure the set is submitting back to false. And also with something wrong happen on this cat, basically, I just want to console error, and the message is going to be failed to create post, and then just render the error on the console error as well. Okay, so on the try, basically, I'm going to make sure we are going to create new post. We're going to use Prisma, all right? So for the function, I'm going to put that function on the lib folders. So inside the lib folders, I'm going to create a file called actions.ts, right? So in here, I'm going to export async function. So this async function is should have name, I'm going to call this create post, right? And the parameter that I'm going to send in here is basically data, right? For now, just return data. So let's try to call this function on the page. So I'm going to do right here, I'm going to say const and then post set equals to create post, right? Create post, it should become from the lib actions, and then we are going to send the title and also the content right here. Okay, so we need to wait, of course, wait and then until the create post done. And also we need to change the handle submit function into async function as well. So let's try to go back in here, and we need to create type of this parameter, right? So I'm gonna put that types on the another file called types.ts. Okay, so in here I'm going to export interface. So I'm going to call this create post input, all right? And then we have a title, content, and author ID. All of this is basically string. So let's put the type on the action parameter right here. So I'm going to put like this. So of course we need to import it. Here we go. Nice. And as you can see, we get an error here because we not send the author ID. So basically the author ID should become from the clerk. So just make sure we run, first I think I'm going to put empty string. And then first I'm going to make sure my ngrok is run, right? Because we are going to try to log in. So now we are going to get the user that log in, and we are going to put that user ID on this author ID, right? So let's try refresh here and just make sure the ngrok also run. Okay, great. So now let's try to log in. And oh, we already log in on this Next Clerk, right? But I just want to try to sign out. Just make sure we get clean everything, right? So let's try to sign in. And then I'm gonna use Google, my account right here. Let's try to click continue. And hopefully now we can log in. Yeah, great. So now let's go to dashboard and then new post. Now let's try to basically get the user ID. So how we can get that? Because we own the client component, right? Because we own the client component, we can use use out from the clerk basically. So let's try to do cons, and I'm gonna get something from the use out. Use out should become from the clerk slash Nextjs. So this is basically an hooks, and inside the use out we can get a lot of things. We can get for example user ID, right? So this is basically we are going to use on this author ID. So let's put that right here. If you're not sure what happened on the user ID value, so you can just console log that like this. And now you will see that value. As you can see, user and etc. right here. You cannot see that, right? Oh, this one. So user underscore 2UF, this is basically the user ID. Okay, so let me go back right here. And then we get an error here. It's a, oh yeah, because first we need to also check if there's no user ID, we need to throw an error basically. So instead of try, let's try to check first, right? So if the user ID doesn't exist, I'm going to just throw an error. So let's throw new error, user is not authenticated. It's fine. Great. So now as you can see on this author ID, there's no error. So because this is a client component, of course, it's need a time until we get the user ID, right? So we have a kind of like a loading state. So here on the use out, we have is loaded value. So we can get that from the use out, and we can basically render kind of like a loading component when the is load is false, right? So we are going to do if the is load is false, I'm going to basically return maybe a div. You can use skeleton loading, but in this video, I'll just put a really simple text loading like this. Okay, so let's try. I'm going to refresh, and you will see loading right there, right? Loading right here, and we get the UI of the form. We also need to check if the user is not logged in. We need to make sure user it should be redirect into the route, right? So here I'm going to use useEffect to check that out. So useEffect, and then this useEffect will run every time the basically is loaded change. And also I'm going to use another value from the use out, which is sign in. So now inside the useEffect, I'm going to check first if the is loaded is done. I mean, this is true, and the is sign in is false. It means user not sign in. I want to basically use a router in here. So let's try to say cons router set equals to use router. It's come from the next navigation, and then let me just run the use router first like this. And then now we need to run the router right here. We can say router.push. We need to push the user back to the home page. And of course, we need to send another things, which is the is log in, and also the router as a dependency of the useEffect. Okay, everything is fine. And then of course in here we need to also do something. I think instead of post, I'm gonna say result. So in here, after user successfully create new post, I like to basically show kind of like a toast notification. So I'm going to use component called sooner from the shadcn UI, right? This one right here, as you can see, the example. Let me just pull my face on the top. As you can see, that's the example. So we're going to use this sooner, right? So let's try to copy this component and then I'm going to install it. Let's open another terminal, just paste that right here, npx shadcn add letters add sooner. So just make sure you use a dash dash first. So let's try to wait that and done. Great. So now let's try to close the terminal, and then next we need to just use the toaster on the root layout. So let's go to the layout of the root in our application. And then in here under the children, I'm going to render the toaster just like this. And then how we can use that, let me just take a look on the top right here. As you can see, this is just the example. And then how we can use that, it's pretty simple. Let me show right here. If the button is clicked, toast is run, and as you can see right here, we can send like a kind of like title of the toast and description and also the action. Really nice. So let's try to use that. Let's go back here, and right here first I'm going to check if the result, right, dot success. So we don't get any success on this result. The reason is because we don't yet create the action right here. This is just return data. So later I'm going to return kind of like success to true maybe, right? So after reusing this one, you will go back in here, and if I do a dot, as you can see, we have success, right? If the result is success, what I'm going to do is I'm going to run the toast notification. So I'm going to say toast like this, and then just make sure we import the toast from the sooner. And then here I'm going to add a title. So I'm going to say post created successfully. Great. As you can see, I'm making typo on the result. Let me go back here, just change this to success. And now, of course, there is no error on this toast. And also, after user successfully create the post, I like to push the user back to the root of the application. So we can say root.push /. And if user cannot create the post, something wrong happened. I just want to show the toast failed to create post. That's it. So let's try to go back into the action, because now the function is not do anything, just return success. So every time we create the post, of course, it will success. Let me showing you on the localhost 3000 here. Let me try to create, for example, title one, say hello. I'm gonna create post. As you can see, it's successfully that have show the toast notification say post created successfully down here, and it will redirect user into the root of the application. Let's try to go back, and of course this is not really successful because this is just mimicking the successful, which just returns success to true. So in here basically we need to use Prisma to add new data on our PostgreSQL database. So first I'm going to make sure that this action component, it should be run on the server. So I'm going to say use server on the top right here. Just make sure all the function I write on this action.ts file will run on the server side. Right. So first I'm going to use try and catch in here. Try and catch, right? We catch the error and just do like this for now. Okay, so anyway, the first thing what we are going to do is I'm going to get the user ID from the Clerk. So because we on the server, and now we cannot use auth like we're doing on this example right here. As you can see, we're using use auth on the page, create page, but on the action, we are going to use just auth, right? Because this is on the server. So inside the try, what I'm going to do, let's say const And then I'm going to run the await out. Out's going to become from the clerk slash Nextjs slash server, just like this. And now we can grab value user ID inside this await. So we can say user ID, great. And then in here, we need to check first if there is no user ID, that means user is not login. Of course, user cannot create a post, right? So I'm going to say return. In here, the success, I'm going to set that to false. And the message that I'm going to send in here is unauthorized, right? Great. So now down here, I'm going to say cons post set equals to await prisma dot post, because we need to add something on the post table. So we can do prisma dot post. If you need to add something on the user, you can say prisma dot user, right? Prisma dot post dot create, because we need to add new data. So inside in here, we need to put an object, and we need to have to do data first, data and then object. So inside in here, what you need to send, right? So first I'm going to send title. Title should become from the data.title, right? Come from the parameters right here. And also we need to send content, should be equals to data.content. And also author ID, it should become from the user ID. So now we can return that response right here. If user successfully create new post, it will return success to true, and the data, it should be return the post right here. And as you can see right here on the page, we already sent the author ID equals to user ID, right? But we really don't use that on the create post, because the user ID, we get that from the out right here. So I think it's fine. So now let's try to just delete the author ID, and then let's go back to the type. So we don't have to use the author ID anymore. So now if something wrong happened with our create post right here, we need to return error, right? So in this case, I'll just console the error creating post and just put the error value. And then down here, we need to return the success becoming false. And the message is failed to create post. Okay, so save that. And now we can just try to create new posts. Anyway, I'm going to go back to the page, I think, and in here we need to basically get the post. So after we create post, we are going to immediately show the new post on the console. So in here, I'm going to say, let's do cons, and then this is going to be post, because I'm going to get all the posts, and I'm going to say await for the prisma dot post, right? Find many like this, and then order by descending, and I'm going to make sure the author is include, and then just run it. Okay, as you can see, the order by created at descending include author into true. So now let's try to just console log the post. So before you create new post, just make sure your database on your local, if you're using PostgreSQL on your local, running. So let's click open Postgres, and as you can see, it's not running. So let's click start, and now it's running. Great. So let's try to refresh just to get everything is clean. Now let's try to do title 1, right? And also for the content, this is title 1. Let's change that to heading 1, for example. And we have also hello world down here. This is going to be a bold. And let's try to basically create posts. I'm going to click that, and as you can see, post created successfully, and we redirect into the homepage. And now if you take a look on the terminal, we have this data. As you can see, we have the ID and title and content and etc. So now, because we have content on the post, of course, there's no reason using mock data. So we are going to use, we are going to remove these mock data. Let's go back to the app right here, and we are going to send the post into the blog post list. Set equals to post, right? And now, of course, we need to add the blog post list that have the post props like this. Now we need to grab the post just from the props of the component. So let's save that. Now as you can see, we have title one and also this is title one hello world come from the database, which is great. So now let's create the interface of this post. So I can say interface call blog post list props. And then in here, I'm going to make sure we have a post. And inside that, I'm going to use post come from the Prisma client, right? So I'm going to put that inside in this component like this. But as you can see, we still get an error. The reason is because this is an array. So I should put the post with array like this. All right, great. There's no error right now, but as you can see down here, we still get an error. It's just because author doesn't include on the post basically. That is because on the schema of Prisma, as you can see, post doesn't have author that have a first name, a last name, and etc. So basically what we are going to do is we need to create another interface and we are going to extend and the Prisma post. So anyway, what I'm going to do is say interface. I'm going to call this a post, right? And then I'm going to say extends. So basically I'm going to change the post right here. So I'm going to change that to maybe Prisma post. Okay. So I'm going to change the name and then here I'm going to say extend Prisma post, right? So inside in here, I'm going to say author and then I'm going to put user from Prisma client like this. So now, of course, we can use block place post right here. And now the post should be come from this interface, right? Post come from here. And then this interface have extend author come from the user. So that's why now there is no error. So now let's try to create another post. Let's go back to dashboard. And then I'm going to create another post. Let me do that. I'm going to use a data from the mock data here, right? Welcome to my blog. Copy that, paste here. And for the content, I'm going to use this content here. So anyway, we cannot use heading one right here, right? So just putting hello world. This is my new post. So let's try to click creating new post. And as you can see, now we have welcome to my blog right here. Nice. So anyway, if I click welcome to my blog, nothing happened. All right. This is just the page not found because we don't yet working with that post. So now let's just close everything. Right. Let's just close everything. And now let's create the, I think, file right here. So this basically will creating folder called post. And inside that, I'm going to create folder called ID. And inside the ID, I'm going to create page.tsx file. Okay, so now I'm going to say rfc, change that to post like this. Okay, post page like that. And now let's try to see, I'm going to refresh. As you can see, we have post page right here. Nice. So now let's just working with this post page detail. So first we need to wrap everything with container component, container like this. And then now inside the container, I'm going to put a link back, right? So I have a link come from the next link. And then we have each ref. It's going to be go through the /. And then inside the link, I have a button. The button should be have text back and also have icon arrow left that have class name call. Let me do margin right too. Also the height 4 and width 4 as well. Save that. Let's take a look what we have. Okay, we have this button back. And also just change the variant into outline. Also, I'm going to make sure I use the small size. So now we need to get the post detail from the database using Prisma. But we need to get the ID first. As you can see right here, we need to get this ID. So anyway, how we get that ID? So we can say props in here, all right? And then we need to make sure that this prop should be have param with promise. And then we need to change this component function into async component. And then what I'm going to do inside in here is basically, let's say cons and then params equals to await. We need to await to the props.params. This is the new way to get an ID into the newest Next.js basically. So you can do that like this. So anyway, here I'm going to say cons and then I'm going to destructuring the ID set equals to params, and that's it. Now you can just console log the ID. You should see the ID on the console. Let me scroll down, and as you can see, this is the ID. Great. So now we get the ID, and then now let's get the data from the database using Prisma. Okay. So here I'm going to do is say cons, grab the individual posts from the await, and now I'm going to create function called get post by ID, and then we need to send ID in here. We don't have yet this function, so let's create that function first. So let's go back to the actions.js file, and in here we need to create basically the function, right? I think just copy all of this, come from the create post. I'm going to duplicate that, and then down here let's change the function name into get post by ID. So this function is basically like a ID, so I'm going to say post ID, and this is going to be a string. Great. So in here, I don't want to check if the user login or not, because if user not login, user still can see the post detail. So that's why in here, I just want to remove all of that. And then I just want to say post, post that equals to await, prisma.post. And then I'm going to use function called find unique. Okay, I'm going to use find unique. And then let's remove the data here. I'm going to make sure that where the ID is equal to post ID, right? The ID come from the database is equal to the post ID that we send on this parameter. And then I also want to include, we need to also make this comma, and then let's say include. I also want to include the outer. Outer is going to be untrue. Great. So now here I'm going to check if there is no post with that specific ID, right? I'm going to return error in here. So let's say return success false, and the message I'm going to say post not found. Great. If we have the post, which is right here, I'm going to return success to true, and then the data is going to become from the post right here. And if something wrong happened, I just want to console log error. This is gonna be, say, database error, something like that. And then, oh, I think I just want to return null in here, just to null, just like that. So now let's go back to the page.tsx, and then we need to import the get post by ID. And then now let's try to console log the post. Okay, just make sure we get the value on the terminal. As you can see right here, this is the detail of the post. As you can see, we have welcome to my blog and content and etc. So now we can render that data on our article down here, because I'm going to create article tag right here. So first I'm going to check, of course, if the post is doesn't exist. I'm going to say if the post is doesn't exist, I'm going to return not found component come from the next navigation, just like that. And also let me scroll down, and here inside the article, I'm going to render a h1, let's say h1, and I'm going to say post dot data dot title, of course. Let's try to save, and let's take a look. As you can see, we have the title right here. I'm going to add margin bottom, I think, on this. I think I'm going to wrap this link inside the div, and then I'm going to say class name into margin bottom 6. Let's wrapping all the link inside that div. Refresh it, and here we go. Okay, nice. Let's try to just styling this heading 1 a little bit. I'm going to make sure the text is going to be for Excel, and also for the font, I'm going to use font bold, and also the margin bottom, let's do 4. Let's take a look. Okay, I'm going to zoom out 100%. Nice, close the console. Great. So I think I just want to get it from here. So the everything here. Let's try to just copy that and then paste that right here. Of course, we need to get post.data. So anyway, we need to also import the format data. And as you can see here, type data or undefined is not assignable to parameter of type date. So anyway, I think I'm going to add condition like so. If the post.data.created at half a value, that's I'm going to return this format date. Otherwise, just return this unknown date. Okay, great. Now let's try to see what we have. As you can see, we have this Chandev with March 24 and 2025. So basically, I like to have space between all the three elements here. So that's why in here, all of these three elements, I'm going to cut that out and then put that inside the div like this. So inside the div right here, I can add class name, display flags, item, it should be on the center, and also gap between all these three elements is gonna be 2, and the text mute for ground like that. And then also margin bottom, I'm gonna set that to 8. Save that, and here we go. Okay, look nice. So now the question is how we can render the HTML content right here on the detail with all the styling that we write on the rich text editor. So anyway, we are going to use rich text editor. So here, still inside the article tag, I'm going to render the rich text editor like this. And we have to send the content. Okay, so the content is going to become from the post.data.content, right? Save that, and as you can see, if I hover it, it's look like this. So basically string and undefined is not sendable to type string. So we have to send the default value. In this case, I'm going to say or empty string. Okay. OnChange is missing in the type. So basically we have to send OnChange function. But in this case, we don't have to, right? Because this is just for view only. So that's why on the rich text editor, I'm going to make sure the OnChange it should be optional props. So we don't have to send this because this is an optional. And also if I scroll down, as you can see, we have this error because in here, I have to check first if we have the OnChange run the OnChange function. That's it. So now let's take a look on the detail of the post. As you can see, now this is render, but I don't want to see all of this on the top right here, the toolbar. Let's go back to rich text editor and basically, I'm going to add condition on this menu bar. So anyway, I'm going to create new props in here called editable. So this is basically an optional, and then by type is going to be a Boolean. And also inside this right here, I'm going to create a variable called is editable set equals to editable or true. So basically, I'm going to put the editable on the props first. And here we go. So basically, if the editable is not provided in these props, right, it's going to be true by default. And then I'm going to make sure the isEditable is going to be called down here on the menu bar. So I'm going to say if the isEditable true, I'm going to render this one. Here we go. Okay. And of course, because we want for the detail post, editable is false, right? So I'm going to send editable on the page right here into false. Okay, great. Yep, we need to remove this one. Great. Let's take a look what we have. As you can see, now the menu bar is gone. And inside the use editor, basically we can send these props editable and then just put the is editable like this. So if I save that, as you can see now, if I refresh, basically we cannot edit anything inside in here. As you can see, we cannot do that. We cannot do anything in here. But of course, I also like to just remove this border radius and also the border color and also the background. So the way we do that is on the class name right here, right? We're going to add condition basically. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say if the is editable true, I'm going to render the class right here, but else just put empty class, right? For now, if I back right here, as you can see, this is the rich text editor, but it's look like just a view only. Let's try to go back to the dashboard and we are going to create a new post, okay, with all the styling. Let's go back here. I'm going to say title 2, for example, and I'm going to say this is title 1. I'm going to add heading 1. Say this is title 2, okay. I'm going to use heading 2 right here. And for the heading 3, I'm going to say this is title 3. I'm going to use heading 3. And also this is bold. Let's make it bold and etc. Okay, I just want to use highlight this one, test. I'm going to make sure this is going to be highlight. Okay, we have this styling, right? So I'm going to save that. Great, it's successfully saving. As you can see, this is the block, right? The card block. I'm going to click that. And as you can see, bam, right? The styling is right here. I mean, look at this. We have the title with heading 1, heading 2, and heading 3 with bold, with highlight. This is automatically because we're using the rich text editor render in here. So that's why the styling is just apply, right? That's beauty about the Tiptap. So the next thing is I'm going to check if user login, right? Which is, in this case is chandev. With the block author, it's same. I'm going to show the edit button right here so I can edit the block. So anyway, here I'm going to first get the user ID from the clerk. So because we own the server component, of course we can use auth, okay? So here, what I'm going to do, let's say cons, and then I'm going to say set equals to await for the auth, okay? And then I'm going to grab the, I believe it's called user ID. Yep, great. And in here, I'm going to check cons is author set equals to if the post data author ID, mean the author ID from the post is equal to user ID that log in. I'm going to basically inside this div right here, I'm going to say is author, and I'm going to render another link right here. So yeah, I'm going to use this one. Great. So it's going to be link. Okay, as you can see, this is have a link that have href into post /id/edit. And also for the button, we have this edit text right here. And also basically I'm going to use icon edit from the Lucid React that have this class name. I'm not going to use this class name, by the way, but I want to use, let me say variant to outline and the size into small. So let's try to save that and let's take a look what we have. As you can see, we have the edit button right here, but I want to have some space between the back button and also the edit button. So on this div, what I'm going to do, let's say display flags, item center, and also gap between these two elements is going to be 4. And yep, everything's fine. Save that and here we go. So now let's working with the edit page. As you can see, if I click edit, of course, not found page will render. And as you can see on the top right here, this is basically the path that we are going to create the page. As you can see, we access the ID and then edit. So anyway, I'm going to change this path right here. When I edit, I like to just go to /edit/ID. Okay, so let's go back on the detail post. And then in here, when I click the edit button, I just like to go to edit. Okay, and then /ID, and that's it. So let's try to do that. I'm going to go back. Let's try to click it again, edit. And hopefully now we on the /edit/the ID. That's what I want to do. So let's create the page. So anyway, on the app folders, I'm going to create edit folders, and inside the edit, I'm going to create ID folders, and inside that, I'm going to create page.tsx. Okay, so inside in here, I'm going to create RFC and then change the name into edit post page, I think post page. All right, so now just make sure the component will render when we go to that edit/ID. And as you can see here, we have edit post page. This is what we want. Okay, Basically, the edit page and the create page is really similar. So that's why I just want to copy and paste come from the create/page component here. I want to copy everything and go back to edit. And now I just want to paste that right here. Okay. But I just want to change the component name into edit page, edit post page. Okay. Like this. Let's try to save that and let's take a look. This is what we have. Okay. But of course, there's a couple things that we are going to change right here. First, let's see what happens if I click the back button. If I click the back button right here, the link is run, right? So it will redirect me into the home page. So I don't want that. I like to, if I click the back button from the edit, I like to go to the /post/ whatever the ID. So the ID is going to become from these params right here, the URL, how we get the ID. So anyway, we can get the ID from here. So let's scroll up and then inside the edit post page, I'm going to send these params. Okay, so we're going to use the params right here. So anyway, to get the ID, we can say cons, and then I'm gonna grab the ID from, so here, because this is on the client component, we can use method, okay, come from the React, and then just put the params, just like this. So basically, this is the new way how you can get the ID with Next.js 15, the newest version. And here we get the ID, okay? So the ID is pasted right here. So let's try it. If I click back, as you can see, now we're on the /post/ID. But we still get not found right here. It's just because it should be post with s, not single post. So let's add s right here, save, and let's try it. If I on the edit, if I go back, as you can see, now we on the detail of the post. Great. So let's try to change the title here. Let's go back into the heading one, and I'm gonna change this one into edit post, for example. And here we go. Nice. Also, I'm going to change the text right here, right? This is by default is create post from the create page. So that's why in here, I just want to change that into save changes. And then in here, I'm going to remove it and change that into savings. Here we go. So in this use effect, what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically fetch the post data based on the ID. And then we are going to render that data into this title into the content. So here inside the use effect, what I'm going to do is let's first create the fetch function. Okay, I'm going to call this fetch post. Set equals to, it's going to be async function. I'm going to use arrow function. And here, I just want to make sure that I'm going to call the fetch post right here if the is loaded is true. If the is loaded, I'm going to call the fetch post like that. So I'm doing typo right here. It should be fetch post like this. So inside the fetch post function, I'm going to do first if check, right? So I'm going to check if the user not signed in is signed in. If user not signed in, what I'm going to do inside in here is just return undefined, just return nothing. And inside in here also, I'm going to say try and catch, try, and then catch. Okay, I'm going to catch the error. And then if error happen, I just want to console or error failed to fetch post. Finally, down here, what I'm going to do, let's set the is loading. Oh, we don't have the is loading, right? So let's just create the is loading. So in here, let's create another state called is loading like this. And this is going to be a boolean by default. Of course, this is going to be true. So I'm going to say true by default. And then after the fetching done, I'm going to make sure the set is loading. It should be back to false. And also inside the try, we are going to fetch the data. So I'm going to say cons post set equals to, it should be post set equals to, I'm going to say await into the get post for edit. I'm going to send the ID. So we don't have yet this function. Okay, so let's create that. And we are going to create that on the action again. Okay, on the action.ts file. So anyway, I just want to maybe copy and paste come from the create right here. I'm going to duplicate that like this and just change the name of the function into get post for edit. So this function get post by edit is just like a ID as a parameter. Okay, so just make sure we get that from here. So I'm gonna call this post ID, and post ID of course is going to be a string. So in this try, first we get the user ID. If there's no user ID, just return success false and message authorized. So this is important because if user not login, there's no reason user can edit that post. So that's why in here, just check it. If user not available, not login, just return success into false. Great. So in here, we can say const post await prisma.post. And then instead of create, what I'm going to do is find unique. So first I'm going to say find unique. Okay, instead of find unique, I'm going to remove this data. And then what I want to do is make sure the where the ID come from the ID of the post is equal to post ID that come from the parameters. After we get the post, that specific ID right here, we need to just make sure I'm going to return basically the field that I select right here. The field that I'm going to render is basically an ID. It's going to be true. Title is going to be true. Content it's going to be true. And also I'm going to send also outer ID is going to be true as well. So before we returning success, I like to also check if there is no user. If there is no post, right? What I'm going to do is let's return success to false and message say post not found. And also right here, I'm going to check if the post.outer ID is not equal to user ID that edit this post, it will return the. So I think I'm going to change the message right here if the user is not matched. So I'm going to use you don't have permission to edit this post. And after all of this condition, and finally just return success true with data, and then data is going to become from the post. Okay, and also if something wrong happened, I think I'm going to change this into error fetching post for edit, just like this, and also fail it to fetch post. Okay, so now we can use that function right here. Okay, so we get the post right now. Just to make sure we get the data, I'm going to console log the post like this. Let's try to see on the console because we run this edit page on the client component. Okay, so I'm going to refresh it. And then hopefully now we get the data. As you can see, we have success to true and some data right here. So first, I'm going to check if the post dot success is true. What I'm going to do is get all the title and content right here into that field. Title into the title field, content into the content field. So what I want to do is set the title into post.data.title. Of course, we get this error because sometimes data is possibly undefined. So I think I'm going to use question mark, and also just put this default value is empty string like this. And of course, I'm going to set the content as well into post.data.content like this, and the default value is just an empty string. Okay, now we get the data on the title and on the content of the state right here. Just make sure the title, it should be on the, let me scroll down right here, right? The value is title, great. And for the rich text editor, the content is come from the content of the state as well, which is it will be render. So let me hover this one. React hooks use effect has missing dependency ID. So we need to add that ID as well, just like this. And it's done. Great. Now let's take a look. I'm going to refresh it, and hopefully now the data, it will render on the title, is on the title right now, but not on the content. So I think there's something wrong happened. So let's try to see the content value. So I just want to console log that just to make sure what we have on the content state. Let's try to refresh. As you can see, we have the value, right? On the console, we have this HTML value, heading 1 and heading 2 and etc. But the data is not rendered on the content field. I think there's a problem on the rich text editor component. Let's click that. And then this content here should be have value. And then that content is basing on that content right here. So it should be having value, okay? But why is not having value? Kind of weird, I think. So I think the problem is because the content is rendered even before the content here have a value. So we get is loading true by default, okay? So that's why in here I'm gonna say if the is loading true, I'm going to return maybe, I'm gonna say, let's say div, and inside the div I have another div that say loading, just like this. And I just want to make sure that text it should be on the center. Let me do class name, container, mx auto, and then also the padding 10, let's say px4 or yeah, px4, and also the display flex and justify center. So let's try to save that. And I think if I refresh it, hopefully the content will render on the right here. Great. So now we have that content on the rich text editor, which is pretty good. With all the styling by default, we have heading 1 by default, heading 2, heading 3, bold, and also the highlight. And also, if something wrong happened, instead of just console error, I also like to show the toast notification. So let's do toast, and the toast is to become from the, we already imported, I believe. And the text in here, I'm going to call that failed to fetch post. Okay, I think we're done with the fetching post detail and showing on the input field. So now let's working with the updated post. Okay, so let's scroll down, and right here we have handle submit function, and this basically will run. So as you can see on the handle submit function, we're running the create post, but in this case we need to update post, not create post. So that's why let me go back again into the action. We need to create another function to basically handle the edit post, I mean. So let me just scroll up into the create, and then here I just want to copy all of this and then go very bottom and then just paste that. Okay, I just want to add this command into edit post. So I'm gonna call this edit post, and the edit post is basically have I'm gonna grab the ID. So let's say post ID equal to string, and then the data is going to be create post input. Okay, so here first we need to get the user ID from the authentication, and then if the user ID doesn't have value or undefined for some reason, we just return successful and the message is unauthorized. And then in here, first I think I'm going to remove this one and then just make it comment because I want to just clearly in here. So in here I'm going to say verify the ownership before updating the post. So here I'm going to say cons post set equals to await for the prisma.post.find unique where the ID is equal to post ID, and then I'm going to return the outer ID. Okay, not the ID but the outer ID, just like this. So after we get the outer ID of the specific post that equal ID from the params, what I'm going to do is checking again. I'm going to say if the post doesn't exist, what I'm going to do is, let's say return success is going to be false, and message I'm going to send that post not found. And also I'm going to check here if the post dot outer ID is not equal to user ID. Okay, I'm going to return success to false, and message I'm going to say you don't have permission to edit this post. After we verify the ownership of the post, so the next thing is we need to update the post. So here I'm going to say, I think I'm going to say comment first, or yeah, I think I'm going to remove this return first, and I'm going to say update the post. So this is basically how we can update posts using Prisma. So here I just want to say await for the Prisma dot post dot update, and then where the ID is equal to post ID, and then I'm going to update the title into data.title, content into data.content, and also I just want to update the updated add value. So let's do updated add into new date. Okay, great. So now we have already updated the post, and the next thing is just return the message. I think I don't want to send message. I just want to send success into true, and that's it. And also for the catch error, if something wrong happened when I update the post, I want to say error updating post. And also down here, I'm going to do failed to update post, just like that. So let's take a look. We run this function. Where is that? This function right here on the edit page, okay, which is this one right here. If this is run and successful, we just running this toast notification. But for now, of course, we need to change this message. So if the result of success is true, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show those notifications that say your post has been updated, and also push the user into the detail of the post, which is post/id. And then if not success, just return this toast as well, failed to update post like this. And then right here, file to update post, of course, like that. And also I like to just add the toast notification as well down here. And for the message, I'm going to say failed to update post, and let's say please try again. Okay, and finally we set the is submitting back to false. Okay, I think everything should be fine right now. So now let's try to scroll up, and I just want to remove the console log right here. So now let's try to update that post. So I'm going to change the title into title to updated. And also I just want to change this into updated. And then let's add another list right here, list 1, okay, that have this list bullet point. I'm going to do other things, etc. So anyway, let's try to save the changes. As you can see, your post has been updated, and then this is not updated. So let me try to refresh it, and hopefully now it's updated. Not. This is still not updated. I'm not sure why. So let's go back. This is success, but not update the post. So I'm sorry, the reason is successful and it's not updated because we're still using create post right here on the handle submit. So in here, we need to update that, right? We need to use update post function that we already create. And then what we need to send in here is basically the post ID. So let's just send ID like this, or what the name of the params ID are using in here. Yeah, ID, right? Why we get this error? Oh yeah, there's because we also need to send data, because as you can see on the action, we need to send post ID and also data. Data is basically have the title and also have the, let me scroll down. Data have a title and data have a content. So in here also we need to send that title into title, because we have same name. Of course, title is fine, title and content. Just like this. Now, as you can see, there's no error. Let's try to update this post. I'm going to click edit. Let's try to remove this one here. And for the title, I'm going to say title to new. I'm going to remove the lightweight right here. Let's try to save. Your post has been updated. And as you can see, guys, now this is an updated. So now let's working with the dashboard component right here. because on the dashboard, basically, I'm going to render all my posts for this specific user. If I log in for another user, of course, it should be depend what post that I create that will list right here. And in this dashboard, basically, I have ability to delete that post. So first, let me go back on the why this is still have an warning. Let's scroll up, and yep, we need to just remove this function and it's going to be clean. Great. So now what we're going to do, let's go to the dashboard page right here, and then down the div right here, I just want to create another div. So let me do div and then set class name into text. Just make sure into the center, and also the padding vertically, I'm going to set that to 10. So inside this div, I'm going to put the heading tree that have text XL and font medium. And the text is, let's say, you haven't created any post yet. And also under in here, let's put the p tag. And then I'm going to send text. So let's say get started by creating view first post. And in here, let's add class name into text mute foreground like this. And also the margin top set that to 2, as well the margin bottom to 6. And again, under the p tag, I'm going to add a link, and the href is going to be go to the /create page. And inside the link, I have a button like this, and inside in here, I have create your first post. And then also I'm going to just render the plus icon as well in here. Let's do plus icon come from the Lucid React. Save that. Let's take a look. As you can see, we have this create your first post that we can click it. When I click that, it will redirect me to the create page. So this is basically will show if I don't have any posts. So let's try to add the condition in here. But first, of course, we need to get the post. So I think first, I like to get the user ID, because I'm going to check if user not login, it will redirect user into the home. User cannot access dashboard if user not login. So here I'm going to say cons. I'm going to change first the component into the async component, because this is a server component. So here I'm going to say cons user ID. Okay, it's going to become from the await out, just like this. So what I'm doing, so this one, I'm going to check if there is no user ID. What I'm going to do is redirect user into the /, which is on the home. Next, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to get the post. So let's do cons and then post set equals to, I'm going to say await for the Prisma dot, of course, post, because I'm going to render post in here, dot find many. And in here, I'm going to make sure that the ID or the author ID is matched with the ID from the user ID from the clerk. So here I'm going to say author ID equals to the user ID like this. And then I just want to, I want to order by created at, and then I use the scanning. Also, I want to include also the author. Okay, nice. So now we can just checking down here. If the post is equal to 0, right? In here, I can say like post dot length is equal to 0. So what I'm going to do is render this div. So otherwise, just also render another component. So let's first put all this div, okay, inside this condition if the post.length is 0. So if not, for now, just say heading 1 like this. Of course, this is going to be an empty because now we have post, okay? I think post right here, it should be an array. So I think I like to say post instead of just single post. Let's change this to post as well. If the post have a value in here, I'm going to render a div. And let's just try to add some class name, display grid, and then the gap, I'm going to set that to 6. And for the medium, I like to create grid columns into 2. And for the large and more, I'm going to set the grid columns into 3. Grid column 3, just like that. And inside this div, what I'm going to do is let's map through that post. So I can say post.map. I grab the individual posts, and then in here, what I'm going to do, let's render the card. So let's go back. I think I just want to back to the component, and then blog post right here. So anyway, this card, I'm going to copy all of this, okay, and then just render it right here. And of course, we need to import the card header, title, content, and also the footer, I think. And as you can see, we get this error. The reason is because we don't specify the key. So key is going to become from the post.id. Okay, the key is going to be unique. And then we need to also import the DOM purify. Let me go back here, and then let's try to copy this import and go back. Let's try to render right here. Okay, and also we need to import the card footer and the format date as well. So now let's take a look on the dashboard page. As you can see, this is what we have, 3 columns. And I think right here, I'm going to add margin bottom on the title here. Let's go on the top. I think on this div right here, I'm going to add margin bottom to 8, right? So let's try to save that and see. Here we go. We have space. Great. And anyway, I'm not going to render the name right here because the dashboard is specific for me. So there's no reason to render the outer name. Let me scroll down, and I just want to remove this right here. Okay, we don't need that. And also, I think I'm going to copy this class name, and I'm going to put that class right here, because now there's no reason I'm using flex gap right here because this is just one element. So now just put this text small, text mute foreground in this div right here. Let's take a look. Okay, it's going to be same thing. And also I'm going to render another div right here. Let's say div. This div, it should have class name called display flex, and I have gap into 2. And inside in here, basically, I'm going to render 2 button. The button from the edit and the button from the view. So first, I'm going to use a link component from the Lucid React from the next link. And then I'm going to make sure the href is going to be go through the, let me go to / post / whatever the post ID, say post ID. So this is going to be a view. So let me do button, and then let's say view like this. And of course, I'm going to add some variant. Maybe I'm going to make sure this is outline. And also I'm going to make sure the size is going to be in small. So now let's create the edit. So I think I just want to copy this one and then paste that right here. For the edit, I like to go to /edit /post ID. And then the button is going to be outline, size small. And then here, I'm going to use edit text. And also, let's also render the edit icon from the Lucid React that have class name. I'm going to call this margin right to 2, and also the height 4 and the width 4 as well. Save that. Let's take a look. As you can see, we have view and edit. Okay, I like to put the text here on the top and the view and edit on the bottom. So I think, let me scroll up. Everything is wrapping inside the card footer, right? So in here, I can say display flex and the flex column right here, and also the item. I'm going to make sure on the center and the gap between the div right here. I'm going to set that to 4. Save that and let's take a look. Here we go. So now let's try to create the delete button. So anyway, for the delete button, I'm going to putting that on another component. So let me do that in here. I think I'm going to create a component first on the component folders, right? On the components folders, right? Let's create a file called delete post button .tsx. Let's do rfc. Okay, great. So now let's import that component right here, delete post button, and we are going to send the ID because when we delete post, we need to ID. Okay, so ID is going to be equals to post.id. Okay, so now let's go back right here on the UI. As you can see, we have delete post button. Let's go to the delete post button component. So let's first create the interface. I'm going to create on the top right here, interface called delete post button props. And then I'm going to put the ID is going to be in string. And then let's try to grab the ID props right here. ID, and then just make sure this component using delete post button props. Okay, so now I'm going to use alert dialog component. Let's go to shadcn UI, and I'm going to looking for alert dialog, which is this one right here. Right, as you can see, if I click, it will show like this. So if I click the delete button, it will show the alert dialog like this. So how we use that? Pretty simple. So let's just copy this command. And then we are going to, let me just create another terminal. Let's run it right here. npx shadcn add alert dialog. Great, it's done. So now let's just close this one. And then now we are going to render this example. I'm going to copy that. Then just render that right here like that. And of course, we need to import as well everything right here. Go back and just import on the very top. Okay, so now we still get this error here because ID is not used for now. It's fine. Let's go back to the localhost 3000, and as you can see, we have the open button right here. If I click that, as you can see, the alert dialog is show up. So anyway, I like to open and close the dialog based on the state. So I like to create another state right here. So let's do state called is open like this. Just make sure we import the useState, and then of course, because we're using useState, we need to change the component to the client component. Okay, so this is the reason why on the dashboard I put the delete post on another component, because I don't want to change all the component on the page right here into the client. I like to the dashboard page still server component, but the button will be client component. Okay. So the type of this is open is going to be Boolean, and by default, of course, going to be false. Let's send props in this alert dialog. It's called open, and open is going to be based on the is open state. And then on open change is going to be set is open state. So for the alert dialog trigger, I'm going to render button basically, because we are going to render button. I'm going to specify this is going to be have child, and then let's render a button come from the UI, and then I'm going to call this delete just like this. And of course I have as well the icon, so I'm going to use trace icon. I'm going to use trace 2, and then let's put class name margin right 2, width 2, I think 4, and height I'm gonna set that to 4 as well. Saving that, let's take a look. As you can see, and I think I'm gonna change the color. So let's go to button right here, variant. I'm going to make sure I use outline, and also the size I use small size, and also for the class name I use text descriptive. Let's try to save it, and as you can see, this is a red colors. But as you can see, if I hover like this, the color is changed. I still like to get a red color basically when I hover it. So I'm gonna say if I hover that, I still want to use this color basically. Let's try. If I hover, as you can see, it still have a red color. So now let's styling the dialog. As you can see, if I click delete, of course we need to change in here. So first, the alert dialog title, I'm going to remove this, and I just want to say, are you sure? Just like that. And for the dialog description, I just want to copy and paste from the final project right here. As you can see, it's called "This action cannot be undo. This will permanently delete your post." Okay, and also for the cancel, we have cancel, and then for the continue, instead of continue, basically I'm going to remove this one, and then I'm going to add on-click event on this component. But first, I like to create maybe delete right here. For the alert dialog action, I'm gonna send the on-click event. So I'm gonna say on-click, say handle delete. So let's create the function on the top. So let's scroll up. Let's say const handle delete set equals to arrow function like this. I just want to console log the ID just like this. So now let's take a look. If I just open a console and then if I click the delete, as you can see, the ID of the specific post will show right here. Great, let's go back. I also want to create another state called is deleting, right? By default, it's going to be false. And then I'm going to change the text right here based on that text is deleting state. So if the is deleting is true, I'm showing deleting ... and else I just want to show the delete text. Okay, and also inside this alert dialog action, I'm going to put as well the class name. I'm going to use a background into destructive, which is a red kind of background. Let's take a look. Here we go. Okay, if I hover it, it looks like this. Of course, I don't like it. So let's do, when I hover, I also like to the background is still destructive, but I'm going to set that to 80 for the opacity. So let's try. As you can see, here we go. I think it's fine. I also want to make sure that this button should be disabled if the is deleting is true. Let's go back in here and I can say like disable set that equals to is deleting. If the is deleting true, the disable will apply on this button. So if I click, of course, nothing happened. So let first, what I'm going to do is I'm going to set the is deleting to true. And let's also change the function into async function. And then inside in here, I'm going to say try and catch. Let's do try, catch, and we catch the error like that. And also finally down here, I'm going to set the is deleting back to false like that. And also the set is open back to false. So it basically will close that modal. So if something wrong happened, I just want to console error. The text will be failed to delete post and just render the error. And then I'm going to show the those notification that say failed to delete post, please try again. Great. And in here, inside a try, what I'm going to do, let's say const result set equals to, in here, basically, I'm going to await the delete post function, delete post. So we don't have yet, so we are going to create that. Delete post is take a parameter ID because when we delete something, we need to ID, okay? So let's create the delete post ID on the action. So first, I'm going to just copy all of these, add it right here, okay? Copy all of that and just paste that down here. And then I'm going to change this into delete post, change the function name to delete post like this. And this delete post is just like a post ID. So we don't have to send any data, create just the post ID. So first on the try, we check if user login or not. This is important because if user not login, of course, user cannot delete any post. So we are going to use this one right here. And then we are going to verify the ownership before deleting. Great. And here we just find the posts that have the same ID with the ID we send on the parameter. And we just include the author on this post object. And as you can see, if there's no post, just return false, post not found. If the post.author ID is not equal to user ID come from the clerk, It also say you don't have permission. This is also what we're going to use. Nice. So now let's working with the delete the post. To delete post, it's just really simple. We don't need to send any data. What we are going to do is just say post.delete, and then just make sure the ID is going to be equals the post ID that we send from the parameter right here. Okay, after we delete that, just return success to true. If something wrong happened, let's say console error deleting post, and also return success false, and the message I'm going to say failed to delete post. Okay, great. So let me just scroll up. I just wondering what the hell is wrong right here, because oh yeah, this is another component. I'm sorry. So let's try to import lib action. So we get the delete post right here. So let's try to check. So here, what I'm going to do is check if the result.success is true, show the toast notification that say post deleted successfully, and also refresh the page. So anyway, we can just create the route on the top right here. We can say const router set equals to use route, come from the next navigation like this, and just run the router.refresh down here. Something wrong happened, just throw new error. Okay, so let's try to delete post. For example, the post right here, I'm gonna click delete, and it's gone. As you can see, we have the toast notification down here as well. Delete that again, it's gone. Delete that again, it's gone. I can click view. As you can see, we're on the view of the post. I can go back, and also I can go to dashboard. Let's try to maybe edit. Okay, it's gonna be go to the edit. Let's try to delete, and now we don't have any posts. As you can see, you haven't created any posts yet, so we can create new posts right here. All right, so now let's try to create the post. So here I'm going to create your first post. Click that. It will redirect me to the create page, and for the title, I'm going to use the title right here. And for the content, I just want to copy and paste right here. As you can see, this is have a space, have other list like 1 2 3 4 5, and I think I'm going to make this highlight, and then I think it's fine. Okay, so let's try to click create post. Post created successfully, but as you can see, why it's look like this? Oh yeah, because we on the home, but as you can see, the content, all the content will just render right here, and it look not nice. So to fix this, we can just go back to the page of the root right here. Okay, blog post list anyway. So we are gonna go to the blog post list, and right here there is one class name on the tailwind. It's really useful. So the class name is basically this line clam, and you can put any value. You can use one, this for a line, 1 line, 2 line, or whatever. If I put 2, as you can see, magic will happen. Now we just get 2 line. As you can see, 2 line, and this 3 dot will automatically adding. How cool is that? And also I want to make sure that my title also have that line clam. So let's go to card title right here, and I'm gonna add class name into line clam 1, right? Just make sure we have that. Great, as you can see. Let's try to click the detail. As you can see, that's look really nice. And I also want to add it, for example. As you can see, it just look really nice. Let's try to go to my dashboard, and of course the dashboard, it's want to use that line clam as well. Let's go to the dashboard page, and then we are going to put that right here. Okay, line clam 2, and as you can see now, magic happen. Really nice. And also for the title, we need to also add that class name line clam 1 like this. That's super nice. As you can see, we have 3 dots right here. So now I'm going to log out and log in with another account. So let's take a look. As you can see, I'm not logged in for now, but I can still read the post. That's beautiful. Now let's try to sign in with another Google account. Let's try using Google. And then I select my another account right here, continue. All right, as you can see, I successfully log in right here. And then this is basically written by Chandev. Okay, if I click that, of course, I cannot edit because this is not my blog post. Okay, if I go to my dashboard, of course, now I don't have any blog post, right? So let's create new post. And then for example, I want to just maybe copy the title, paste that right here. And then for the content as well, I'm going to copy and paste that right here. Just add some space. Okay, it's pretty nice. Let's try to create post. Post created successfully. And as you can see, we have two cards right now. This card is written by Chan Kriswinarto and this one by Chan Dev. So if I go to my dashboard, it should be have one post and I can view, I can edit, I can delete as well. Right? That's pretty cool. Let's save the changes. Here we go. All right, that's pretty nice, guys. So I hope you learned something new from this simple video and you can create your own full stack blog application with this beautiful technology. So thank you so much for watching until the end, guys. Thank you so much. So hopefully you learned something new from this video. You can implement how to create a full stack blog application with rich text editor. And then if you like this video, just give me a thumbs up, just comment something on the comment section below. It's mean a lot to me, guys. So thank you so much. See you on the next one.